Hello, Gino here, and you are listening to Otherworld Connections. We live in a critical time where now, more than ever, angels and fairies, hidden forces, are bursting at the seams of the veil to work with us. They want to see us change in order to save the world and live in service to others. So join me on a journey to empowerment and enlightenment with an angelic angle and a fairy focus, looking into ways to improve our current situation, morality, archetypes, solutions for self-healing, and spiritual sciences in light of theosophy and other occult traditions.
Hello. I was going to call this show West Side Connections. West Side Connections about my life as a gangster, but I decided to call it Otherworld Connections about fairies and angels. I'm just kidding. That joke sounded better in my head than when I said it. Welcome to the show. And on today's show, we've got a fairy tale. We have got some readings, some messages from the she, some messages from the angels, our travelling companions. We have a quick look at the moon, and we look at our thoughts as ever in the Hive Mind segment. So let's get going. All right. So today's fairy tale. The Marvellous Musician, which is a Brothers Grimm fairy tale, which they collected. So here we go, let's just do it. There was once upon a time a marvellous musician. One day he was wandering through a wood all by himself, thinking now of one thing, now of another, till there was nothing else left to think about. Then he said to himself, "Time hangs very heavily on my hands when I'm all alone in the wood. I must try and find a pleasant companion." So he took his fiddle out and fiddled till he woke the echoes round. After a time, a wolf came through the thicket and trotted up to the musician. "Oh, it's a wolf, is it?" said he. "I've not the smallest wish for his society." But the wolf approached him and said, "Oh, my dear musician, how beautifully you play. I wish you'd teach me how it's done." "That's easily learned," answered the fiddler. "You must only do exactly as I tell you." "Of course I will," replied the wolf. "I can promise that you will find me a most apt pupil." So they joined company and went on their way together, and after a time they came to an old oak tree which was hollow and had a crack in the middle of the trunk. "Now," said the musician, "if you want to learn to fiddle, here's your chance. Lay your front paws in this crack." The wolf did as he was told, and the musician quickly seized a stone and wedged both his forepaws so firmly into the crack that he was held there, a fast prisoner. "Wait there till I return," said the fiddler, and he went on his way. After a time he said to himself again, "Time hangs very heavily on my hands when I'm alone in the wood. I must try and find a companion." So he drew out his fiddle and fiddled away lustily. Presently a fox slunk through the trees. "Aha! What have we here?" said the musician. "A fox. Well, I haven't the smallest desire for his company." The fox came straight up to him and said, "My dear friend, how beautifully you play the fiddle. I would like to learn how you do it." "Nothing easier," said the musician, "if you'll promise to do exactly as I tell you." "Certainly," answered the fox. "You have only to say the word." "Well, then, follow me," replied the fiddler. When they had gone a bit of the way, they came to a path with high trees on each side. Here the musician halted, bent a stout hazel bow down to the ground from one side of the path, and put his foot on the end of it to keep it down. Then he bent a branch down from the other side and said, "Give me your front left paw, my little fox, if you really wish to learn how it's done." The fox did as he was told, and the musician tied his front paw to the end of one of the branches. "Now, my friend," he said, "give me your right paw." This he bound to the other branch, and having carefully seen that his knots were all secure, he stepped off the ends of the branches, and they sprang back, leaving the poor fox suspended in mid-air. "Just wait where you are till I return," said the musician, and he went on his way again. Once more he said to himself, "Time hangs heavily on my hands when I'm all alone in the wood. I must try and find another companion." So he took out his fiddle and played as merrily as before. This time a little hare came running up at the sound. "Oh, here comes a hare," said the musician. "I've not the smallest desire for his company." "How beautifully you play, dear Mr. Fiddler," said the hare. "I wish I could learn how you do it." "It's easily learnt," answered the musician. "Just do exactly as I tell you." "That I will," said the hare. "You'll find me a most attentive pupil." They went on a bit together, till they came to a thin part of the wood where they found an aspen tree growing. The musician bound a long cord round the little hare's neck, the other end of which he fastened to the tree. "Now, my merry little friend," said the musician, "run 20 times around the tree." The little hare obeyed, and when it had run 20 times round the tree, the cord had twisted itself 20 times round the trunk, so that the poor little beast was held a fast prisoner, and it might bite and tear as much as it liked. It couldn't free itself, and the cord only cut its tender neck. "Wait there till I return," said the musician, and went on his way. In the meantime, the wolf had pulled and bitten and scratched at the stone, till at last he succeeded in getting his paws out. Full of anger, he hurried after the musician, determined, when he met him, to tear him to pieces. When the fox saw him running by, he called out as loud as he could, "Brother Wolf, come to my rescue. The musician has deceived me too." The wolf pulled the branches down, bit the cord in two, and set the fox free. So they went on their way together, both vowing vengeance on the musician. They found the poor imprisoned little hare, and having set him free also, they all set out to look for their enemy. During this time, the musician had once more played his fiddle, and had been more fortunate in the result. The sounds pierced to the ears of a poor woodman, who instantly left his work, and with his hatchet under his arm came to listen to the music. "At last I've got a proper sort of companion," said the musician, "for it was a human being I wanted all along, and not a wild animal." And he began playing so enchantingly that the poor man stood there as if bewitched, and his heart leapt for joy as he listened. And as he stood thus, the wolf and fox and little hare came up, and the woodman saw at once that they meant mischief. He lifted his glittering axe and placed himself in front of the musician, as much as to say, "If you touch a hair of his head, beware, for you will have to answer for it to me." Then the beasts were frightened, and they all three ran back into the wood, and the musician played the woodman one of his best tunes, by way of thanks, and then continued his way. All right. So, I am excited. Today I am doing the exploration on the deeper meaning of this. So I haven't just really taken it out of a book. I've had a look at the symbolism. I haven't gone very deep, but you're going to get the idea. To find the message inside the story. And the fairies love allegory and simile and rhyme. But looking at allegory and the hidden message in myth and fairy tales, it is a lost art. It is the glue of the society, the free society of yesteryear. How about we say that? The idea of the society of a world that doesn't have authority or government, that sort of thing, and communities stuck together and were together, and morals and ethics and values were transmitted and expressed through storytelling. So, what is the meaning of this story? Because you'd think when the wolf came that it's a self-defense thing, right? Because wolves are wolves. But then he also did it to the fox, okay, maybe, and then the hare, poor little hare. But it's okay, let's start with the wolf. So the wolf symbolizes being expressive in your communication, particularly by adding more body language and vocal inflection. So projection of sound, projection of communication, right? Resonance. The wolf was tied to a hollow tree. The hollow tree, so where I'm going to go with this is, which I did get this concept from somewhere, that there's a correspondence in the story between the violin, the fiddle, the violin, and what's going on in the story. So the hollow tree corresponds to the body of the violin, the hollow resonant body of the violin, the hollow resonant body of the tree, which the wolf is tied to. So the meaning there is that there is there's a thread. There is a connectedness to everything, and the symbolism of all of which is what ties it all together. So the wolf tied to the hollow tree is about being expressive in your communication and your body language. So it's your actions, right? So that part of the story is symbolic of actions and controlling your actions. And the fox? Well, fox symbolizes the senses and the feelings. I'm being very general here. And, fox symbolism, like if you were to have a serendipitous moment where the symbol of a fox popped out to you, it would be saying to you to trust your senses, to guide you, or to trust your feelings. So in the story, the fox tied to the bow, the branch of the tree, and was pulled taut. It corresponds to the string tension of the violin. And the strings, and the tension of the strings on the violin, are where you put your fingers. And that's where the feeling goes. And it's all about feel for the violin. And the vibrato, and obviously getting the right pitch creates the right tone, which is the right feeling, right? So the fox being tied to the tree is about control of the feelings. So there's control of the actions from the wolf, segment of the story, and then there's control of the feelings through the fox segment of the story. And then we come along to the hare. And the hare symbolizes, again, very rudimentary and general, natural wit and intelligent choices. So it's to do with the thoughts, to do with the mind, sharp mind. And the hare was wound around the tree, which is symbolic of the pegs, the tuning pegs of the violin. And the tuning pegs of the violin, well, you put your mind to it and say, well, the violin needs tuning up the strings. The strings are out of whack, so I need to adjust the strings of the violin by using the pegs. And that's a thought. That's an intelligent choice. To get the feelings right, you get the mind right. Okay, so the hare segment represents getting the mind right, getting the thoughts under the control. So we've got the actions and the feelings and the thoughts under control. The wolf restrained, the fox restrained, and the hare restrained. And the violin itself symbolizes being free and clear of problems. It symbolizes happiness and elegance. And those things are, well, the violin playing a beautiful tune, and all is going well because the thoughts, emotions, and actions are all the ducks in the row lined up. So, my moral of the story that I deduced from this is and because there was the woodcutter that protected him once the thoughts and the motion, the wolf, the fox, and the hare got free, and the woodcutter then protected the fiddler. So, the moral is something like, or the allegory or the hidden message inside this fairy tale is something like, to get your thoughts, emotions, and actions all under control and lined up, and you'll be protected. Powerful forces, aka the woodcutter, will come to your aid. You will be a master of your thoughts, emotions, and actions, and you'll have them under control, and they won't get out of line, and they won't lead you astray, and they won't harm you, and you'll also be helped by external forces on your way. Pretty good, huh? And, this has been not really a theory, because in the books, your books out there, they do talk about, the meaning of things, but I really do think that a lot of these fairy tales, the ones that have stood the test of time, are really giving us, universal principles, objective morals that are all that's really needed to have a free society, right? I think we need to understand the morals behind the story, and they are essentially natural law teachings, and if we know them and understand them, and we read these stories to our young children, we're spending our time and attention on young children, which is the true currency to pay the dividend and get the result that we want, which is a free world. And we pass on the teachings of our ethics and morals, and it's just a perfect storm, and that's what the fairies want, and that's what the angels want. I'll just quickly read. Let's have a look for time. Aha! Okay, I'm going to quickly read this. This is Erich Fromm's book from 1951, The Forgotten Language, An Introduction to the Understanding of Dreams, Fairy Tales, and Myths. And just a quick paragraph or so from the chapter Symbolic Language in Myth, Fairy Tale, Ritual, and Novel. The myth, like the dream, offers a story occurring in space and time, a story which expresses, in symbolic language, religious and philosophical ideas, experiences of the soul in which the real significance of the myth lies. If one fails to grasp the true meaning of the myth, one finds oneself confronted with this alternative. Either the myth is a pre-scientific, naive picture of the world and of history, and at best a product of poetically beautiful imagination, or, and this is the attitude of the orthodox believer, the manifest story of the myth is true, and one must believe it as a correct report of events which actually happened in reality. While this alternative seemed inescapable in the 19th and the beginning of the 20th centuries in Western culture, a new approach is gradually taking place. The emphasis is put on the religious and philosophical meaning of the myth, and the manifest story is viewed as a symbolic expression of this meaning. But even as far as the manifest story is concerned, one has learned to understand that it is not just the product of fantastic imagination of primitive peoples, but contains cherished memories of the past. So there you go. And I say it contains cherished principles, universal principles, in a lot of these stories. And part of the show, we're going to be tapping into those, exploring those. A little bit selfish, really, because then I can use them for the Secret Kindergarten radio show for young children. But it's important for the adults to understand, and me especially, to understand the allegory behind the story. So when I read it, there is a transference of the inner knowing, of the inner meaning of the story, because I'll be saying it with that conviction. And that's what all parents can do, or all adults can do when they do their story time for kids. So get out there and read fairy tales to children if you can. If you're an uncle or an auntie, what have you. Right, traveling companions. This is Influence of the Angels tarot reading that I do every week here on Otherworld Connections. To get inspiration for what you are to contribute to the world, it is a good idea to join a group or organization and experience group identification. This will help you to learn about your beliefs and position on things. It will help teach you to defend your position and beliefs as well. Your resilience and tolerance for others will grow, which will lead to the inspiration for your goal and the desire to actively pursue it. Sleep is very important for maintaining a state of balance and for having strong, robust ideas, framework, and actions for your goal. And try to be confident and act positively. Okay, so another cool one. You're not feeling inspired about what you want to do in your life, where you want to go in your life? This is great advice here. Join a group or an organization. I never heard advice like that, but it does make sense, I think. Counterintuitive once again, like a lot of the advice from the angels and the fairies. But there you go. I think group identification, we know it's not really good, right? We're all free thinkers and we're all independent. But joining a group or organization, well, that helps you see where you stand with yourself. Putting yourself up against the group, at least internally, right? Or the organization. All right, there you go. Sleep is very important. Okay, that's a big one. We got to get our sleep. The sleep is where we interact with the angels and the fairies, according to the theosophical tradition. And I agree. So get a good night's sleep. You want to get into your deep sleep state. And as we know here, we are trying to be confident and act positively. It's a big chunk of this show, Otherworld Connections. Messages from the royal fairy realm people. All right, what do the have to tell us this week? Research your plans for the future in solitude. Reunite the moon energy with your journey. Be honest and creative. Trust that you have the power to overcome obstacles and the wisdom to maintain a distance from negative, invasive, and self-defeating thoughts. All right, research. Setting aside time for yourself and researching things. What would you research? whatever you're interested in, well, there's a big hint on the direction your life wants to take you. In solitude. Tricky one. Can you get time to yourself? Reunite the moon energy with your journey. Well, that's why we do the moon musings here on Otherworld Connections. And, astrology is that's a huge, huge topic that requires a lot of study and knowledge. But we can just have a little bit of an eye on the moon, like we're doing here. Half an eye on what the moon's doing. And once you sort of get into the flow of things, you're reuniting the moon energy with your journey. And then you can take that as far as you want. And if you do know a lot about astrology, well, you can tell I'm not taking it super far at all. But at least even just keeping an eye on where the moon's at and whether it's waxing or waning, that kind of thing, it's going to help you. Okay, trusting you have the power to overcome obstacles and the wisdom to maintain a distance from negative, invasive, and self-defeating thoughts. Is that my life journey or what? Trying to maintain a distance from negative, invasive, and self-defeating thoughts. So this is a big challenge for me, just to be candid and, I'm not saying I'm above all this stuff, right? This is all, these are all messages for me as much as they are for any of you that are listening and want to heal and change and improve. That's what this show is about for all of us. So, some of the exploration in this show, we are going to figure out how to maintain this distance from negative, invasive, and self-defeating thoughts. And I will share with you something I found from the book, The Art of Possibility, Transforming Professional and Personal Life, by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander. And I believe Rosamund Stone Zander is a conductor of an orchestra. But let's not get into that, because it's a very white bread book in a way. Not really, but it's quite a normie book. Hey, listen, I did this, and then I flicked to the page where there are endorsements. There's those little bits from people, celebrities and stuff, that say, oh, you must read this book, it absolutely changed my life. Well, the first endorsement was from Klaus Schwab. Oh my goodness. But anyway, we can still take information from books and decide whether that information is helpful or useful or not. So here we go. This is a strategy called being the bored, which I try anyway. Being the bored. When the way things are seem to offer no possibility, when you are angry and blocked, and for all your efforts, others refuse to move or cooperate, to compromise, or even to be halfway decent, when even enrollment does not work and you are at your wit's end, you can take out this next practice, our graduate course Impossibility. In this one, you rename yourself as the board on which the whole game is being played. You move the problematic aspect of any circumstance from the outside world inside the boundaries of yourself. With this act, you can transform the world. Imagine this scenario. A car waits peacefully at a red light. Another barrels up behind and smashes into its rear. The driver of the second car, it turns out, is intoxicated and unlicensed. Who is at fault? According to the law, there is no doubt. The drunken driver is 100% at fault. However, in this chapter, we are introducing the notion of responsibility of a different kind. This new kind of responsibility is yours for the taking. You cannot assign it to someone else. It is purely an invention, and yet it strengthens you at no one's expense. Ordinarily, we equate accountability with blame and blamelessness. concepts from the world of measurement. When I blame you for something that goes wrong, I seek to establish that I am in the right. And we all know the delicious feeling of satisfaction there. However, in as much as I blame you for a miserable vacation or a wall of silence, to that degree, in exactly that proportion, I lose my power. I lose my ability to steer the situation in another direction, to learn from it, or to put us in good relationship with each other. Indeed, I lose any leverage I may have had, because there is nothing I can do about your mistakes, only about mine. Let's get back to the peaceful, law-abiding driver, to apply the practice of being the board. That driver, even from her hospital bed, will cast a wider framework around events than one ordinarily does in the world of fault and blame. She might begin with the thought, driving is a hazardous business. Every time I step into a car, I am at risk, while usually I can count on other drivers to be awake, aware, and law-abiding. There is always the chance that one of them may fall asleep, drink too much alcohol, have a sudden seizure, or simply be young, angry, and feeling reckless. When I drive, I take that statistical risk. I own that what happens on the road happens in my sphere of consciousness and choice. So this is absolutely not as simple as this person makes it out to be. It's about, I think there's something important in this about, choices in the present moment. So something's happened, and then you have a choice now about how you respond to it. And I think being right and being wrong obviously are really, really important. But say in the case of the driver, this lady who was crashed into by a drunk driver, well, she couldn't really do anything about that. So focusing on risk, the fact that she took a risk by driving is, a good, healthy thing. Should the drunk driver be punished? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a little bit about cutting your losses. So this is a tricky one, but being the board, so this is a strategy to maintain a distance from negative, invasive, and self-defeating thoughts, because that's, at the end of the day, what the thoughts are. Someone crashed into you, that is bad, okay? And then now that it's happened, and you're focusing on that you've had wrongdoing done unto you, then you are having negative thoughts. And also these thoughts are invading. So we need to maintain a distance. Being right is important, and justice is very important, and doing the right thing is really important. But also, the tricky part is separating all that and looking out for negative and invasive thoughts. It's real tough. And having said that, being the board, and I think that's the importance of learning about objective morality, natural law, right and wrong, because that can be the framework that allows you to be able to be the board, to step back, because the board, the board is life, and there are operating conditions. All right. So that's a good one there. I better move along. All right, it's hive mind time. Okay. Bad things happened. We were technically victimized. It's already happened. The real victimization is when we focus on the negative thoughts and these experiences come back to haunt us. And then that creates our reality moving forward. We don't want that to happen. So we want to stop those thoughts. We need to take a step back. So we're going to look at another book, Learn to be an Optimist by Lucy MacDonald. And we'll just have a look at her chapter, Stop Your Thoughts. Well, it's a strategy. It is vital to set out on all our undertakings, expecting to succeed. However, sometimes our efforts are hampered by negative thoughts that circle around and around in our minds. Thought stopping is a technique you can use to help you disrupt and discontinue these negative thought processes. Yay! Find a quiet, comfortable place to sit. Close your eyes and breathe slowly, deeply and evenly. Release the tension in your body by contracting and releasing each of your muscles in turn. When you feel relaxed, bring the negative thought that is troubling you into your awareness. Consciously repeat the thought in your mind, and after each repetition, say out loud, stop or no. Having stopped the negative thought, try to replace it in your mind with a positive statement. For example, if your unwanted thought is, I am too shy for people to like me, you might change that into, I am confident and people like me. With practice, thought stopping will become second nature to you, so that you can even use a condensed version of the technique in pressure situations, such as business meetings, in settings where talking out loud to yourself would be inappropriate. Try imagining a red stop sign instead. Whatever the circumstances, say no to negative thoughts, and that's the big thing here. Because generally in psychotherapy, in society, we don't say no, because no is negative, and we're trying to be positive. Incorrect, because that's the funny thing, because saying we don't say no is using this principle. This is saying no. Oh, the oxymoron. And this stems from, this is like the bit, one of, I honestly think it's the biggest problem in the world. The magic word no, you're not being allowed to say no, and that starts in the institutions, in the early childhood institutions. It starts there, and it creates the world that we get now. You have to fight, you have to defend yourself from your negative thoughts. It's so hard to do. It's tough, and because it's tough, well, it's not good to be tough, is it? To be tough on yourself. You're supposed to be kind to yourself. That's why, that's why you've got all these problems. No, that's incorrect. You've got to fight these things. So we need to grab that hair, tie a noose around its neck and tie around that tree. Get control of those thoughts. So one thing that's interesting here that's new to me is, and this is the tricky part here too. I want to get answers in this moving forward, so stay tuned to Otherworld Connections in the coming weeks. We're going to get on top of this, and we're going to have a framework to just be masters of our mind, and to live the life that we were born to live, and create the world that we want, the free world. So we're going to do it. We are going to do it. Okay, so I hope you're coming along with me for the ride. The interesting thing here is consciously repeating the thought. If you get invasive and repetitive thoughts from a PTSD kind of thing or a trauma, well, the feeling is that you don't have control of it because it just pops up into your mind. So I haven't ever seen this strategy, consciously repeating the thought in your mind and then saying no. Well, I would say if it comes up into your mind and you're aware of it, and this is where psychotherapy is good, cognitive behavioral therapy is good, where the therapy session, they just try to get you to be aware in the present moment, and that's really important. So that's what therapy is good for. So if you are aware of the thought coming in, stop or no, tell it to go away. Consciously repeating the thought in your mind, and after each repetition, say out loud, stop or no. Okay, so that's the interesting new development in thought control here on Otherworld Connections. actually consciously bringing in that thought that you've been getting and telling it no. Okay. Moving right along to moon musings. And we refer to Moon Phase Astrology by Raven Caldera. And we have thereabouts the Scholar's Moon, the waxing gibbous moon in Sagittarius. Let's see what Raven Caldera has to say about the waxing gibbous moon in Sagittarius. On the Scholar's Moon, we study what has been written in the past. The area of study doesn't matter so much as the attitude. One does it to absorb what is to be found, not necessarily to find one particular thing, especially if that one thing is intended as a justification of some behaviour. Let the quest come as it comes. If the road tangents off, take it like a Sagittarian and see where it goes. This is by definition a good time for research or academic writing if you're in school. A test taken on the Scholar's Moon will turn out well. Well, I'll just talk about myself for a moment. That's what I've done here on today's show with the fairy tale. I've researched and looked into what that meant by studying and researching symbolism myself. And I came to a really good conclusion. And that's actually opened up a doorway for me. So this is where, paying a little bit of attention to moon phase astrology, you can get ahead in your life. You can actually start opening up doorways, moving a bit further or faster down the path that you're meant to go down. So I'm super happy about that. It wasn't quite the Scholar's Moon when I started, but I do also believe that there's a little bit of leeway here because the moon changes from new to full in a matter of 28 days or what have you. So it moves along pretty quick. Keeping an eye on things, you start to get a feel for it. And then if you let it guide you a little bit, things start turning out pretty well. So I managed to do my first allegorical research of a fairy tale all by myself. And I got a really good message and I found a really good meaning that sticks and sits well and it ticks boxes. And I'm super happy about that. Okay. Oh, we are so running out of time. And so let's see what the She have to say, because they've always got something to say about the moon. And it's on research. So the theme on this show is research. Celebrate the fact that you don't know much, if anything, about your chosen field of study. You are free to be intuitive about which sources, topics, and information you will utilize. This is how you will become an authority in your field of study. And if you look at all the super successful, smart, amazing people that have changed the world, have you looked at their story? Their story is usually unique and unorthodox in the way in which they learned and the way in which they went about things. Have you noticed that a lot of the geniuses were considered really dumb when they were younger? They did badly at school. But they did things their own way. So doing things your own way is more important than whether people consider you to be smart, society whether they consider you to be smart or not. Because you are free to be intuitive. Choose the information in your chosen field of study. Be yourself. Live the life you want to live. Learn the knowledge you want to learn. And you will be a super genius expert that changes the world too. We looked at strategies, stopping your thoughts, consciously bringing that thought that you want to go away back into your mind. It sounds a bit scary, but we know now that we got to fight the negative thoughts. That's the bottom line. To fight those negative thoughts, we have to be aware of them. We have to have a distance from them so we can be the board. We can be the chessboard rather than the piece. We are one of the pieces in the game when something happens to us, but we take the position of the board and say, hey, something's going on here. What am I going to do about it? Doesn't mean that you should go out there and be a victim. and accept all the things that happen to you and do nothing about it, but it's about taking a step back and making a choice. And that choice could be getting angry and beating the heck out of the person that assaulted you. Absolutely. But we don't want to hang on to that for the next 3 months. I have PTSD for the rest of our lives for that as well. Okay. Because we want to achieve our goals. We want to make space in our mind for working on our goals and achieving our goals to be happy, successful, and create the free world that we want to live in. Thank you so much for tuning in to Otherworld Connections. We'll see you at the next one. Cheers. Have a good rest of the week, everybody. See ya.